The Last of Us was great. It was one of the best games I've ever had the pleasure of playing, and a title that was beloved by many for good reason. The story mode was brilliant and offered some great replayability, but I spent a lot of my time in the multiplayer too, which unfortunately never really seemed to take off as much as the story mode did. The Last of Us had factions as a multiplayer mode, which pitched two teams against each other in a couple of different game modes separated by playlists, with the aim of obviously winning games, but also with a deep metagame based on accruing the currency of supplies to spend on upgrading your armour and weapons between rounds, whilst also taking some home to support your own camp. Factions was brilliant. It was a stellar multiplayer experience that, whilst it did have a few downfalls, was criminally overlooked and still stands out as one of the best multiplayer experiences I've enjoyed to date. With The Last of Us 2 coming out next year and multiplayer confirmed to be returning in some form, let's take a look at 5 things I want to see return in The Last of Us 2's multiplayer. The supply system behind the original Factions mode was the core driving force behind progression and storyline of said mode. With you pitted as the soldier of a camp, every enemy you killed, teammate you healed, and match you completed would give you supplies towards not only buying armour and guns between rounds, but for keeping your own camp alive and growing said camp. As your camp got bigger, you needed of course more supplies, so you would have to actively try to perform better in matches, with the reward at the end of your camp's life cycle being various cosmetics that could only be unlocked by having a certain amount of camp members alive and well at the end of the cycle. Whilst this system wasn't essential to core gameplay outside of upgrading weapons, buying ammo and armour, etc., it was a great driving force behind each match. It actually gave you something to play for and a reward to aim for if you can keep your camp alive, and it would be great to see it return in The Last of Us 2. Whilst we're on the topic of camps though, camp challenges were regular special events that would happen within your camp that would require you to do various things within the game to keep your campmates alive. Whilst the early stages would risk maybe 20% of your camp members at the cost of killing 4 enemies within say 3 matches, later challenges would threaten to kill off your entire camp if you could not perform much harder challenges. These weren't always kill based either, with the game giving you the option of playing to your strengths and allowing you to choose which conditions you wanted to play the challenge under. These challenges again gave you something to play for, but also made the thought of losing a daunting one, as you'd risk losing your entire camp in the later game. Losing the match can be a driving factor enough for most people, but putting your hard work from the past few weeks on the line really gives you something to fight for and definitely raises the stakes. The Last of Us Factions had a great perk system which, for the most part, gave you the ability to specialise and augment how you'd like to play the game and your role. Class creation and perks took up points, similar to a Call of Duty-esque point system, where higher tier weapons and perks would take up more points. Also, attachments would do the same for certain weapons. You could take perks that allow you to craft more items, for example, thusly being able to craft gifts for your teammates in the form of bombs, molotovs, health kits and more. You could choose to augment your healing ability, allowing you to not only heal yourself faster and more efficiently, but also allowing you to heal teammates by standing next to them and following a button prompt, which was invaluable when playing with a squad against a decent team. You could go full on stealth, spending all of your points on perks to keep you silent and out of players' listen mode radius, whilst having only a 9mm silenced pistol to your name. These sorts of sacrifices that allowed you to specialise is what made Factions so deep. Some perks, yeah, they were blatantly overpowered and definitely needed some balancing, but many of the perks were great for allowing you to choose exactly what role you wanted to play within your team and how you were going to do it. Maps can pretty much make or break a game, and Factions was of course no different. Many people had played the story mode of The Last of Us many times, and all of the multiplayer maps were of course based heavily on the locales within the story. This made every map feel familiar, even if you were only playing it for the first time, and as you played more and more, you learnt more about different angles, flank routes, side paths and such. The maps were pretty much divided into separate lanes with common conflict points. It's nothing new in map design of course, but with the verticality of many maps it opened up a lot of different angles and routes that experienced players would be able to take advantage of. Every power spot in the game had a decent counter, and to be frank most of the maps were just simply great and they were lots of fun to play on. Even those that weren't the best still offered a wealth of fun, and if The Last of Us 2 can emulate the map design of the first game's multiplayer, they're already onto a winning formula. Listen mode is kind of what really set The Last of Us apart in the multiplayer. Similar to the story mode, it allowed you to listen in on enemy locations, showing you where distant sounds were roughly coming from and where nearby enemies were hidden, but only if they were actively moving and making noise. This system ran on a meter that was quick to drain and slow to refill, which could be augmented slightly by perks, but never to a point where it felt ridiculous. The great thing about Listen mode was that it wasn't just a cheap cop-out, it required skill and map knowledge whilst using it. The distance where you could see enemies highlighted was fairly short, and with the fast burn time of the meter, it was often best to use it as sparingly as possible. If you relied only on your Listen mode to get kills, you'd soon find yourself dead, as Listen mode alone won't simply hand you the kills for free. Given how stealth classes work too, the people that had gone full stealth would be invisible to you on Listen mode, allowing patient players to wait for you to walk past and catch you unawares with a shiv in the neck. Listen mode was a great utility that never really felt like it went too far in being the all-seeing eye in a gunfight. The game still boiled down to pure player skill, but this only added to further raise the skill ceiling and possibilities for players. And there you have it, 5 things I want to see returning to The Last of Us 2's multiplayer. Factions was great whilst it was reasonably popular, and whilst it might be a bit dead now, it still stands out as one of the stellar multiplayer experiences of the last 10 years. Thanks for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, leave a like, let me know what you want to see returning in The Last of Us 2 in the comments below, and also don't forget to check out the channel and subscribe to be the first to see the next video, and join us on the road to 10,000 subscribers. Join me next time when we look at all the things in The Last of Us 2's multiplayer that hopefully won't be returning from the first one. Again, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.